Hi everybody, and thanks very much for joining tonight's session of life coaching with Jamie Smart, and thanks Jamie Smart for joining.
My pleasure.
We're going to do things. I should probably introduce you first. Everybody on this call already knows who you are, I think, but just in case, there's maybe one name I don't recognise. Jamie is a brilliant coach, author of a couple of best-selling books, with another one coming out in the autumn, I think. And as well as being a very successful coach in his own right, has worked with, I don't know, tons and tons of coaches and therapists and change workers on their own personal transformations and on making a living doing change work with other people. And unsurprisingly, those two things are very much related. The usual format of these calls is our guest coaches, one person at a time, to a point of, some kind of resolution, somewhere it makes sense to stop, and then moves on to the next. In this session, Jamie's going to do things a little differently. He's going to, and you can say more about this, Jamie, if you want, he's going to unpack each session either as he goes along or at the end of the call, or a bit of both, just to give everybody a little bit more insight into what's going on and where he's going with it and so on. Jamie, one thing I wanted to check, are we inviting questions? And if so, what's the best way to do it? I could ask people to just message me and then I can read them out to you, or they can message you directly or put their hand up.
So here's my sense. What I'd like to do is, while I'm coaching someone, we'll just, no questions or anything direct to me during that. And then once I've finished that bit, I'll do a brief kind of, here's what I noticed, here's what I was up to. What did you guys notice? What were you curious about? Why did you do X, Y, and that? I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. And I think that could be a really useful way of doing it. And the easiest way might be either hands up or just type your question to Emma and Emma can read it. So that would be my sense. But hands up is nice. I love interacting with people and doing it direct. So we could do both. So either put your hand up or send your question to Emma and get her to ask me. Brilliant.
Shall we start?
Sure.
Okay. And first up is Christine Hansen. Christine, I've unmuted you, so feel free to say hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Good.
Did you get a lot closer to the microphone?
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Jamie. Thank you for taking your time. So I just got in. So my question is, I want to pick your brain on something, and I'm working with someone, and I know that I help them to find their visions, basically, and I know that there's something there, and I'm just not quite getting there, and sometimes I feel that I'm just talking too much. I think I'm aware of that weakness that I have. So I was wondering, how do you do that? Like, how do you sometimes manage to hold yourself back? Does that make sense?
Oh, it really makes sense. I was just holding myself back a bit before I answered. It really makes sense, Christine. And I may be quite quiet while I'm answering. Like, I may pause and stuff, because when answering questions or giving coaching around how do you hold yourself back, I want to walk my talk to the best of my ability and not just bang on for 15 minutes and with my good ideas. So it's interesting, as I was listening to you, I was thinking about a couple of things. One was, for me, it's as much how do I know when to move forward? See, I guess one thing that I'm really comfortable with, at least in the coaching conversation. I'm not as comfortable with this in every aspect of my life. I'm really comfortable with being totally clueless about what's going on or where to go next or that sort of thing. Like I feel kind of, when I'm with a client, I'm kind of in there with them. And I often don't know what to do. I'm often kind of lost or, you know, as puzzled as they are. Like if someone came to me and said, hey, help me find my vision, I'd be like, okay, well, at least there'll be two of us on the job. But I know the best thing, like if I was just to make up that context, the best thing I've got going for me is helping. See, it occurs to me, Christine, like what is a vision? A vision, a genuine vision. Like if I understand what you mean, is this like a vision for their life, something they're inspired to create or a direction they're inspired to go in?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So they've already achieved a lot, and maybe it's good if I fill you in a little bit. So what I do is I coach people on sleep, and it's, you know, sleep is always just the first aspect that they come to me with. And what I do is, before we really do lots of lifestyle changes or anything, is to work on themselves. And it's really through finding their true motivation, where they want to get to, that we can actually start. And those are people who have already had a lot of success, but there's something else there that is motivating them, but it's sometimes so scary that it's sometimes, it's scary to go there in a way.
Well, and so as I listen to you, the things that occur to me are what's going to make it possible to quote unquote go there, or because it seems to me like a vision, that's a thought, and it's probably something that they realize rather than something they've already got written down or something like that. So my question to myself would be, how can I make it as easy as possible to lead this person into a place where they're going to have their realization,
exactly,
where they're going to have an insight? Well, and so the question that then raises is, what are the conditions that are going to be relatively insight friendly? So as you sit here right now, Christine, what are the conditions that you consider to be more insight friendly, more realization friendly?
I really don't know.
Great. Well, that's good, because to me, that's a great starting point. If you don't know, then that's going to be an interesting direction to look in, because you could discover something. So would you like to know what things I've found to be kind of the insight friendly conditions?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, number one is connection. Feeling a connection with the person you're working with. And it's interesting, all the things that I think of, they go for the coach as well as the client. So for me, as I'm having this conversation with you, I know the best thing I've got going for me in this session, for it to be useful to you and to the other people listening in and that sort of thing, is going to be my connection to you and my connection to me, who I really am, you know, my true self, or whatever you want to think of that as. And my connection to life, to the source of insight and realization. That's going to be the first, that kind of hat trick of connections. That's going to be where the action is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree that it's really important to have that trust and, yeah, as you say, that kind of link and connection with the person you're working with, and then kind of go there together, I guess.
Well, that's sure what I've found. And that's always my starting point, is that, finding that feeling of connection, that experience of connection with them, and then kind of hanging out there with them. Like, I've found that to be a very, very insight-friendly place. Well, let me ask you, Christine, when do you get your best ideas? When do you get insights and realizations? When does that show up for you?
At very different points. Usually, of course, when I don't focus on them. So,
Oh,
yeah.
say more about that.
It's really when I don't think about them, when I have walk, driving my car, cooking, things like that.
Got it. Well, now, Christine, what I'm trying to do when I'm working with a client is create that same kind of not really thinking so much about it space that you experience when you're driving or cooking or that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I have to find a way to kind of incorporate that.
Well, like, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, it depends if it makes sense to you. Does it make sense? Like, if you see what you just said, that you get your best ideas, and you even said, of course, when I'm not thinking about it, when I'm cooking or I'm driving or whatever. Well, if that's your experience of when you get insights and realizations, I can promise you that you're not alone in that. That's a universal. That's true for pretty much everyone.
Yeah, and you're giving me an idea, because this is a client who's local, and we've been working on having her kind of switch off, and she's realized that she's very good in doing that when moving, so having walks and things like that. So that's something we could incorporate. Actually, I haven't even thought outside of the, let's say, conventional setting of sitting down and having a talk.
Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, the capacity for insight is there in everyone, because it's there in life. It's there in the principles that animate our experience. So you can get them just as easily sitting in a conventional setting as you can when you're out for a walk. However, I certainly go for walks and things when I'm coaching people, if I'm coaching them in person, just because I don't like sitting around all the time. I like going for walks. But what would you say, Christine, if I was to suggest that same, see, when you're, for instance, cooking or driving, the important thing isn't that you're cooking, or in terms of insight, the important thing isn't that you're cooking or driving or going for a walk. The important thing is that your mind is at rest. You see, what I've noticed with people is when they're preoccupied with something, they struggle. They when they're trying to think their way out of a problem or a situation, because they've got their thinking all revved up, it's hard to find a solution. So that what I want to suggest to you is that, speaking to you as a coach, it looks to me like the most valuable thing that I can do is create a space where my clients' thinking kind of settles down and they fall more fully into connection with the source of intelligence and realization that's already there within them. Because it doesn't come from the walking or the cooking or the driving. That's just a coincidence. It comes because that's your mind's innate capacity. Not just your mind, it's everyone's.
Mm. Yeah, I really like that idea.
Oh, good. Now, what do you like about it?
To kind of, yes, help them to walk their minds in a way, like to kind of let
Mm.
it flow. And I also really like the way that you expressed just before that, you sometimes you wait to move on instead of waiting to stop. It's just the reverse of what I was doing in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the question the thing, would you like to hear where I learned about this?
Of course.
I was getting some coaching once, and my coach said, you know what you could do with improving the quality of your listening. And I was, at the time, as far as I was concerned, I was a ninja listener. I could analyze people's language patterns real time and track their eye movements and replay all their hand gestures for the last 30 seconds and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, oh, really? Tell me more. And he said, it seems like you got a lot on your mind when you're listening. And he was right. I did. I was doing all that stuff. I was really busy inside my head. And what I learned is you can listen with nothing on your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You can listen, like, in a way, that's what's happening when you're cooking. You're listening to life with nothing on your mind.
True.
And so that's how I kind of listen to my clients. I'm not really thinking much. You may have guessed, I'm not really thinking much about what they're saying. I'm just kind of, it sounds kind of poetic, but I'm kind of bathing in it. I'm just being, kind of massaged by their words, kind of thing. And then something will pop into my head and I'll say, how about this? Or how about that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the kind of waiting to go on rather than waiting to stop comes from. It comes from listening until I got something that I want to, a thread I want to pull, or a direction I want to go in, or a question I want to ask. Does that make sense, Christine?
It makes complete sense. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Great. Well, I think that'd be a nice place to pause. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, and what I might do, if you can stay on the call, Christine, then I'm going to unpack this a little bit for everyone, including you. And then at the very end of the call, I'll loop back around to everyone and just sort of check in if we get time anyway, and just see how you're doing. Because the other thing I find that's really, really useful when I'm working with clients is I'll kind of get them into that insight-friendly space and let them kind of hang out and quieten down and that sort of thing. And then I'll let them kind of marinate for a little while. So to play on the cooking analogy,
Yeah.
would you be willing to marinate for a little while?
I will marinate for you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so much. Thank you.
You're really welcome. So just for everyone who's listening, what I'd like to do, I'll give you a brief kind of what was occurring to me as I was doing that, but then I'm really happy to answer your questions and that sort of thing. Just to kind of set the big context, how I think of working with a client is, number one, connection. I want to get into connection with the person and with my true self, like I was saying to Christine, and with the intelligence of life. I want to be hanging out in that insight-friendly place myself, so I know what to do. And if I'm hanging out in that place, I'm much more likely to make good decisions and that sort of thing, rather than, for instance, bang on for half an hour about the importance of not banging on for half an hour. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I'm attending to is clarity of thought. So clarity of connection, clarity of thought. How clears my mind? How clears the client's mind? How up in their head are they versus how settled down are they? And what I find is the more clear-headed we both are, the more of a feeling of connection we're going to have. So I'm calibrating off that feeling of connection. And then the third thing, the third kind of clarity I think of is clarity of understanding, which is the person's understanding of the inside-out nature of life. And so part of what I was doing with Christine there was kind of pointing to, where does that stuff come from? If what they're looking for instance, is a vision, well, what is a vision? Well, it's a thought. It's just a thought in picture form. And so, well, where does that come from? Well, it was my guess that when her clients get connected to an inspiring vision, they've had an insight. They haven't, necessarily clipped it out of magazines. It's hit them. It's occurred to them. And so that's going to be where the action is creating an insight-friendly space. So that was kind of my general thinking, was to kind of calibrate where Christine was at, get into a connection with her, and then once the time was right, do a little bit of educating about what was going on. So that's where I'm at. Any questions, anybody? Or shall we, I'm happy to answer any questions you've got. Either put your hand up and ask me directly, or ask the questions via Emma, whichever you prefer. And I'll give it 30 seconds or so, and if no one's got anyone, I'll crack on. But if you've got them, I'm ready to do my best to answer them.
I've had a question from Matthew, which I think he said, if Jamie doesn't come back to it, could you ask him what other conditions can lead to insight over and above number one, connection? And I know you talked a little bit about it, but if you've got anything to add, that would be useful.
I'd love to, actually, and I've just seen from Matthew said I've just covered it, but I'll throw something else in, because I want to really be clear about this. People have insights in the middle of war zones. Mahima, Mahima just finished doing the Clarity Coach training, and I met Mahima because she'd read my book, or picked up my book in a bookshop, read a few sentences, forgot about it for a month or two, and then was watching some videos about this stuff, and started exploring it and learning about it. And what she'd read was, you're living in the feeling of thought in the moment. And then the Nepal earthquake struck, and Mahima was in the middle of that. And in the midst of what must be one of the most terrifying situations I can imagine being in, Mahima had a profound insight. And suddenly all her fear and anxiety went away, and she felt more connected with life. Now, if you were asking me, what are the conditions that lead to insight? If I was to say, well, find an earthquake zone and pray for an earthquake, I wouldn't recommend that. But the thing is, it's an inside job. There is no set of external conditions that lead to an insight. It's the internal conditions that lead to an insight. And the internal conditions are a momentary break in the habitual, outside in misunderstanding that we all get caught up in from time to time. And the moment that pauses, there's space for insight and realization to come through. So that's why it so often gets reported when people are walking, or driving, or at the gym, or going for a run, or whatever. It's just that those are some of the times when people are willing to take a break from overthinking to such a degree that there's a gap and something comes through. So yeah, I'll leave it there. Anything else?
Cool. That's all we've got for now.
Okay, let's have our next contestant.
Okay, the next person due up is Carol Boston. And I don't see Carol's name here, but we've got 2 or 3 people who have dialed in, or it's just showing up as iPhone or something. So I'm going to unmute those one at a time. Or in fact, I'll unmute them all together. And if anyone here is Carol Boston, could you speak up? Last call for Carol. I'm guessing so we don't have Carol. While I've got you all unmuted, is Gavin Pressman here? I can hear talking, but I don't think it's aimed at us, so no. I'm going to mute everybody again, which means next up we have Sally Coton.
Sally Coton.
Hello.
Hello. How are you, my dear?
I'm good, thank you, Jamie. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Lovely to see you.
You're looking skinny.
Oh, you're too kind. You can keep on making these comments as long as you like. It's a special camera I just bought.
Oh, I want one of those.
It's the skinny cam.
The skinny cam, excellent. So what I wanted to have a chat with you about was just a pattern that I've noticed that I seem to repeat. Now, it's nothing like it used to be, so there's some shift that I've had in it. But what it is, it's around taking action. So what I notice is I get a good idea to do something, and then I might start taking some action, and then I get into an awful lot of, I just get into a load of thinking about it. I'm sure I do. And what tends to happen is then I will go and try and, it's almost like I feel I need to get more information on it, or I need to work something more out, or I need to be clearer on something. Or I get, it just gets, so then I just do sweet FA and for quite a long time and don't move forward on something. And it can be a bit frustrating for me, because it's like, something I thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, set some, for an example might be, right, I'm going to do some marketing around something to bring in some clients to do some free sessions with, and potentially, get some paying clients out of it. And so I'll have that on my radar. It seems really inspiring, good thing to do. And then I get into too much, how do I do it? Do I need to am I clear on my niche? Am I going about it the right way? And, I think my way out of it. And I would love to get a little bit more clarity on that. And I certainly don't do it with everything, Jamie, otherwise I would never get out of bed. But but I'd love a little bit more clarity around that.
Okay, so a question came up to me right away, because you said it's a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah, so I've noticed that I'm taking much more action on certain things. So like recently, I was talking with some people at a networking event, and I saw an opportunity, and I reached out to them following the network event, and then followed them up on a number of occasions because I didn't get a response, and then ended up having a meeting with a couple of directors, and I'm going into do intake with a team and potentially do a workshop. So that's like huge, follow through on action for me. So that's brilliant.
Great.
And then so that's great. And then there's other things that I'm really, so that's like, I've done that. So I'll sit around and do nothing for, I don't do nothing. I go ride my horse. You know what I'm like. So, So it's just this thing of and I know certainly in the past, one of the things is I used to be much more, my action would be on the basis of when things got really shitty, I would take action. So I was really away from motivated, I'd wait till things got really bad. And what I'm a little bit concerned about, I think, with this growing my business, is that I'll wait till I run out of my redundancy money completely and I've got no money. And then I'll be like, oh God, I've got to find clients. And I don't want to get to that point. I don't want that to be the point of where my motivation really kicks in. I'd love to just, when I'm inspired, keep moving forward. That's how I'm seeing it at the moment.
Well, now, there are a couple of things that occur to me. But before I run after those, why do you think it's a lot better? Like, what has led to it being a lot better than it used to be?
So I think like for the example of reaching out to that company, I saw my thinking about, I'll wait till they seemed interested, but I'll let them contact me. And I saw it for being what it was, that it wasn't real, that I didn't have to pay attention to that. So I ignored the fact that I felt really uncomfortable reaching out, and I just did it.
Great.
I just went, okay, I feel uncomfortable. It feels a bit scary. It feels unknown. And I don't really know the right way to do it, but I'll do it. And that's been the journey with that. So that's, and the same when I went to do the initial consultation with the, you know, the meeting with the directors. I was driving there going, I haven't got a clue what I'm going to do. I really don't know, but I'm sure it'll be fine. And I was really nervous. And then by the time I got in the conversation, you know, when I got in the meeting with them, it was great, and I really enjoyed it. So those times I've just sort of not paid attention to the thinking. I've taken action despite, you know, some of the stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's when maybe I don't realize, I don't see it, you know, when that's what I would say probably.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Same here. Same here. I'm exactly the same in that respect. When I don't see it, when it looks real to me, and not only looks real, it's not, because thinking pretty much always looks real till it doesn't. Yeah. It's when I don't realize that it's thought, like literally, I choose my words carefully. When I don't realize that it's thought, then I'm at the mercy of it.
Mm. So I want to be able to, I suppose I want to be able to realize things more quickly, more often.
You and me both. You and me both. And here's the thing, I'm not being, did you ever see the fall and rise?
In the backside.
Yeah. Did you ever see the fall and rise of Reginald Perrin?
Yeah.
So, do you remember Doc Morrissey?
Not off the top of my head.
He was the company doctor, and every time Reggie went to him with a problem, the doctors would give the list of things. Yeah, oh, you know, sore head, yes, this, that, and the other, and he'd like nail all the symptoms, and then Reggie would go, "That's amazing. What is it?" And the doctor would say, "Oh, I don't know. I've got it too." And I'm like that. I've got it too, which is when I don't know that it's thought, it has its way with me. Because there are times when I don't know it's thought. And when I don't know it's thought, then I treat it like it's real. And so the thing that I've found incredibly helpful in this respect is looking to, where does it seem like my experience is coming from? Where does it seem like my feelings are coming from? So I'll give you an example. There's this thing I'm working on. It's kind of a product and a diagnostic tool and all this stuff. And I'm, on the one hand, I'm really excited and inspired about it. But I keep going, oh, I've got to get this finished. And then every hour I spend on it, it seems like there's more to do. Like it seems like every hour I spend trying to get it finished, the job gets even bigger. I'm like, that's not. And what I realized was I was uncomfortable about finishing it. Well, it seemed to me like those feelings of discomfort were coming from the task and from the product and the thing I'm making, and coming from the future and the investment it's going to take and all that stuff. But that's not possible. Your feelings, they don't know about products and clients and the future. Your feelings don't know about that stuff. Your feelings know about one thing. Your feelings know about thought in the moment. In this moment, this exact moment, that's the only thing our feelings ever know about. They don't know about the future. They don't know about the past. Your feelings don't know how much money you've got in the bank. Your feelings don't even know what you're like. Your feelings know about one thing and one thing alone, and that's thought in the moment. Now, they're expert on that. They know nothing about anything else.
I can feel a yeah, but.
Oh, great. What is it?
I think there's two. There's a yeah, but if it was that simple, and yeah, I know it is that simple, which is frustrating me. And the other yeah, but is yeah, but Jamie, you're good at taking action.
Well, so let me deal with the second one first. I'm amazing at taking action, except when I'm not, which is the same as you. That's the same as everyone. Everyone's great at taking action, except when they're not. And so the interesting question is, what gets in the way? And what gets in the way is that thing that is that simple. Now, you said something that I thought was very interesting. You said, yeah, but if only it were that simple, but I know that it is. Now, that's what I wanted to pick up with you.
Yeah. There's a part of me that's going, is like, it is that simple. And then there's part of me that almost doesn't want to accept that it's that simple.
Well, here's the thing, Sally. Like, this thing I'm talking about, this thing I'm pointing to, the 100% inviolable nature of the connection between thought and feeling, that is, it's deceptive. And there are absolutely times when I don't know it's that simple. And don't get me wrong, you could put me on a lie detector and you will never hear me saying, no, it doesn't work that way. I've changed my mind. Like I know that it works inside out 100% of the time, no exceptions. You will never hear me arguing the case for the opposition. Okay. But one of the implications of that is I'm going to get tricked by it. And so are you. And when you're getting tricked by it, saying, I know it doesn't work this way, isn't of any help whatsoever. I find it much more helpful to go, wow, I guess I don't know it works that way. Like if I don't know that it works that way, then this is kind of the first thing I said to Christine. And she said, I don't know. I'm like, oh, great. Don't know is a really, really leveraged place to learn from.
And I think that's part of it, because then I start to try and grasp or try and know.
Yeah, that's. See, here's the thing I really like, Sally. When we were just like 30 seconds ago, when we're talking about that space of I don't know, I feel really close to you. I feel really connected. It looks to me like that's where the action is.
Yeah.
That's where the juice is. And see, you and me and everyone else, we're all born with the capacity for realization. We've all got it. You can count on that. And when you don't know, it's like, well, that's cool. I guess I'll know later. But trying to pretend that you know or make yourself know something that you don't know, there's just no leverage in that. But that's okay, because you've got an automatic system built in. That's something you got going for you. It's really powerful. The power of realization. The fact of the power of realization is so much more valuable than any insight you might have. Like if an insight is an apple, the power of realization is the tree that yields 10,000 apples, a million apples.
It's just occurring to me that I may also be waiting for a realization before I take action.
Uh-oh.
As in, I'm like, oh, I'm stuck, therefore I need a realization before I can move forward.
Yeah, that's not true.
Yeah, I know.
That's not true. That's good.
Yeah. That's putting me in a bit of a like stuck. That's making me get stuck.
Yeah, that's classic, and I see that a lot actually in the kind of spiritual New Age community and the principles community around there. Is people do a version of I'll wait till I feel good to take action, or I'll wait till I have an insight to take action, or I'll wait till I know the exact right thing to do before I take action.
Yeah.
It's like, wait if waiting feels like the right thing, but there are things you can discover by taking action.
Yeah.
You know,
I've seen that in no end of different areas.
Sure.
It's like it's tripping me up in the business building side.
Until now.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great place to pause. Are you okay if I kind of take some questions and unpack a little bit, and then if you stay on the line, I'll do my best to loop back before the end of the call, and we'll check in with you, check in with Christine, and so on.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Thank you, Sally. That was lovely. So with Sally, again, similar to what I was doing with Christine, I'm looking for a feeling of connection. And there were certain points in our conversation when I felt really, really super connected to Sally. And there were other points less so. So it's like, it's a dance in and out, and he's feeling more connected, feeling less connected, feeling more connected, feeling less connected. And my experience is that kind of correlates to her having more on her mind or less on her mind, and me having more on my mind or less on my mind. And that's kind of the dance. But what I'm always aiming to do with people is to just kind of keep kind of pointing them back towards that space of clarity, of realization, of insight. Because I know if they hang out there for a while, what inevitably happens is they go, something's just occurred to me. Something just occurred. They don't say, I've just figured it out. The language is often, it's just occurred to me. Something's just dawned on me. It's just hit me. Something arises, emerges. It's an insight. It's a realization. Well, see, here's the thing I know. We've evolved over millions of years, right? We've been around on this planet for a hell of a long time. So we've evolved for reality. We're great at reality. And our whole systems are set up for how life works, including our ability to get good ideas and that sort of thing. And the power of thought is so compelling that we sometimes get tricked into believing that the world works outside in, just like people used to get tricked into believing the sun went around the earth. But the moment we fall back into reality, we're hanging out in the domain of wisdom and insight and realization and clarity. Realize, it's about being real. So that's what I'm always aiming to do, to point my client to that place of connection, of clarity, of insight, because I know that that's our best bet for something occurring to them, something showing up that's going to make a difference to them. Now, is that guaranteed to happen? No, it's not. But it's it's the best shot I've got. It's more reliable than anything else I've found. Hanging out in that place of insight. So, yeah, that's what I was up to with Sally. Any questions, comments, curiosities about that? Feel free to ask stuff. I'm happy to share whatever I can with you.
I haven't had any questions yet, Jamie, but it just occurred to me that if it's all right with you, we could invite people to post in the Facebook group and either tag me or tag you if they have any questions afterwards, because I think one of the things that happens, and I know it does with me, is that I tend to fall into such a quiet space while I'm listening that often questions occur afterwards rather than...
Sure. Well, that's fine. Very, very happy to do that. And the other thing, I guess we'll share it with you guys in the next few days. I did a coaching session with Liz Scott a few weeks ago. And it occurred to me to do a transcript of it and then to go through and annotate this transcript. So we thought we'd share that with everyone here as well. So you can go through that if you like as well. So yeah, well, shall we get the next person up?
Yeah, we have. Gavin Pressman joined just after I called out for him. So we'll go over to Gavin. I'm just trying to unmute you, Gavin. There you go.
Hello. Hi, Jamie.
Hello. Hey, how you doing, man? Gavin and I have known each other forever, haven't we?
Yeah, we have, yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely to see you, and I really enjoyed that interaction. It feels miles away from my question, in the moment. The question I had, which I posed which is just constant for me, is I know, and I was having some coaching with someone who might be on here the other day, where I really realized that for me, compassion and understanding is what I sometimes miss in relation to my wife. So, and I see it very often when I'm out the room. So when I'm in the room with my wife, I get tricked very quickly that she's causing my feelings, and that there's something wrong with her, etc., etc. We can read in lots more to that.
Sure.
And then as soon as I walk out the door, I realise what an idiot I am, and she already knew what an idiot I was, and we very quickly, because we're very much in love and we're very much partners, we get over it, and we. But like what, how? It's a stupid question, but it's the real question. How can I realize quicker? Like how, why, what it, I know that the only answer is love. The only answer, and for her, like literally for her physical healing, she requires from me compassion and understanding. What she gets is me falling into being tricked that she's really irritating, because she's doing what she is always doing, and and that could be just being ill, or doing everyday stuff like cleaning our house, in the way that she wants to do it, which might be a little bit over energetic, or a little bit excited about it, or she might be screaming, or about something, or getting upset with a child. But that's just like, so she's upset with one of my children. I know now, I'm speaking to you right now, that, and I can see from afar that the compassion is the only thing that's really going to be useful in that moment. And yet what she gets from me when she's screaming at one of my children is our children, is anger and upset, and more importantly, this, me falling straight back into the lie that she's responsible for my feelings, and this isn't thought generated, this is her generated.
So the thing that occurs to me as I'm listening to you, Gavin, is it occurs to me that I'm trying to think of the right way to put this, but I'll just kind of blurt it because I can't quite put it into words. But it's like, I guess the first person you'd need to extend compassion and understanding to would be yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I that's really interesting. I mean, yeah. And I see that I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I don't see that I'm deserving of it in this context. Like it's like.
Well, so here's the thing, Gavin. I mean, just kind of independent of context, like what you've just described is the human condition. One person gets tricked and thinks they're partners, causing their feelings. Someone else gets tricked and thinks their job's causing it. Someone else gets tricked and thinks that phone ringing is causing it. Someone else gets tricked and thinks their past is causing it. Someone else gets tricked and thinks their future is causing it. Someone else gets tricked and thinks what they're like as a person is causing it. We're all that that innocent subject of misdirection, or your partner is someone else's, someone else's future is someone else's past, is someone else's, whatever. We've all got our version of the places in our lives where we don't see it so clearly, or don't see it so quickly. Like, that's true for everybody. In that respect, Gavin, you're the same as me and everyone on this call, and everyone on the planet. So welcome to the club.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see that I get a lot of times I just want to be superhuman, Jamie. I want to be, I want to be beyond it all. And I suppose I get upset with myself that and I kind of, and I make it, I kind of make it. In the moments I reflect on it, I reflect on it through thought that there's something wrong. I've seen it before, but I've seen it before that clearly I've got to be human. I must be human. I've had blood tests and stuff, which determine that I'm human. But I trick myself into believing I'm superhuman and that I'm being beyond it or somehow be.
Well, that's just the ego, Gavin. That's just the ego. See, I mean, you and me, we've both been around the personal development and self-improvement world for a long time. And one of the stories in that world that I bought into for many years was that, you know, Jamie plus a bunch of mad skills and XYZ equals super Jamie. And Gavin plus a bunch of mad skills and XYZ equals super Gavin. But that's total bullshit. And certainly the model I'm interested in, the principles behind clarity, is entirely subtractive. It's the realization that you minus misunderstanding equals super you. Like, you're already that super you, and sometimes you get tricked just like the rest of us. Just like the rest of us. But here's the thing, Gavin. Your feelings aren't telling you about you. They're not telling you about your wife. They're telling you about thought. Your feelings don't know about her or you. They just know about thought.
It's so brilliant. I mean, I do love what you just said about minus, because I think that is just such a beautiful way of putting it, to say that, you know, that it, you know, that it's that superhuman or super is a minus equation rather than a plus equation.
Oh, yeah.
For me, yeah.
Can I share something with you, Gavin? I think you'll really like it.
Yeah.
I write every week, I write a thing called the Thursday Enthusiasms. And I'm just finding the thing I want to share with you. And it's like just an article of stuff I enjoy. And each week starts off with a quote. And almost always the quote is from, I don't know, some big author or something like that. But, let's see, where is it now? I can't find it now after all that build up. But I got to just make it up instead. So anyway, Scott's one of my clarity coaches, and he wrote something that was just beautiful. He said he lives in Australia, and he just posted this thing on Facebook, and I said, "Oh my God, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever read." He said, "Before thought is only perfection. Somewhere before thought, you're already everything you want to be." You ever consider that, Gavin, that you already are everything you've been looking for until now?
I'm considering it right now. It's quite beautiful.
Well, that's probably a good place to pause. But if you'll stay on the call, I'll loop back to you at the end if we get a few minutes.
I will. Thanks.
All right, my friend. Great to see you.
See you.
So, questions, comments, criticisms? Do we have any more, Emma, do we have any more people who've put their hands up for coaching?
We don't. We could ask for volunteers if you've time for another one.
We could, or we could go back and check in with everyone, or both. Or both. So if there's anyone on the call right now who'd like to have a quick session, I'm very, very happy to. And I'd also love to just check in with Christine and with Sally and then with Gavin at the end.
Sure. Just to let you know, Christine had to leave. She sent me a message saying, "Hi Emma, I've had to leave, but I loved my session with Jamie, and especially to wait until it is right to talk rather than when you should stop talking. Many, many thanks. Such an amazing opportunity."
Beautiful. Well, if anyone else would like a session, I'll do it. And if not, I'm gonna get Sally back on the line and see how things are looking to her.
I don't see any hands going up.
Let's get Sally back on the line. That's all right. I'm gonna get an early bath tonight.
Oh, we've got a raised hand. Hang on. Fiona Wright.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you well. How you doing, Fiona?
I'm doing good. Hold on, let me see if I can find my video. I'm having to do this on my phone because my computer doesn't like Zoom for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Video. Here we go. Ooh,
Hey, hey.
too close.
So what can I do for you, my dear?
Well, on the whole, I'm doing super, super well, which is fabulous. But it just occurred to me.
So all I need to do is not screw anything up. That's all I need.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, great, let's finish the call right there.
So I think you probably know that I've had that one of my remaining challenges is around family. And although I'm totally happy, I'm totally happy as I am, which is great. I still would like to have, I don't know, I'd like to be able to connect with my family in some way better than what's happening at the moment, which is that my sister's not speaking to me. And I see that that's her stuff. And my mum went away for 3 weeks. And when we had a conversation when she came back, just before she went, we had a conversation, and the end of the conversation was, we were talking about my nephew. It was the most connected conversation I felt I'd ever had with her, because I was talking about, in the context of him and seeing him being a bit, withdrawing a bit, I was just expressing to her how I felt I wanted someone to keep an eye on him, just because what happened to me in my childhood made me withdraw. And I was attempting to explain to my mum how he might not be aware of what it is, but he will be making his own story up about certain things, which will be probably resulting in this withdrawing, because that I was just sort of drawing a parallel with what happened for me. And she
now, why is that probable?
Okay, maybe I made that up. Well, I mean, I suppose I'm seeing things externally that go on for him. Like, for example,
Well,
he plays up a lot, you know, and he doesn't. When he's supposed to go to bed, he plays up a lot, and then he bursts into tears. Then my sister yells at him.
now let me
So
check,
there's something
Fiona,
going
just
on.
right now. Just right now. How connected do you feel to me now compared to about 3 minutes ago? Because one of the things I'm attending to always, not just with you, but with everyone I'm working with, is how much have they got on their mind, and compared to how connected do I feel? And what I find is the more people kind of dive into the outside in misunderstanding, the less connected I feel. So I went, when you were saying everything's going great, and I was like, I could really feel you. That was all. And then the further you're going into this stuff, the more examples you're giving, all that stuff, it's like it's making it seem more real to you, even though your mom and your nephew aren't even in the room at the moment. Like, is that surprising to you that you can, that the power of thought is so compelling that it can take you emotionally into that space, even though you're just making it up real time? I mean, I'm not pointing the finger. We all make it up real time. Is that surprising to you that it has that power? Surprising to me. I'm regularly surprised by that. Like, what just happened? You seem to go from being like happy and in a good space and that sort of thing, right into this story. Like you were saying about the stories he's going to make up. I'm like, look at the stories you're making up right now. And I'm not pointing the finger. I'm saying that's worthy of some respect. That thought is that powerful. It sounds like you had the most connected conversation you've ever had with your mom. That's great.
Yeah, briefly. I mean, it was a long conversation. It was only really the last 5 minutes, but
well, hang on.
I really felt she was listening, that she'd heard me for the first time.
But isn't that great?
Yeah. Yes.
See,
it's just that when I had a conversation with her the other day, it was so far away from that again that I just thought, oh, I just wanted to reach back and have that. You know.
Well, I understand. And, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Like, to me, it's interesting. You know, when I did the coaching session with Sally, one of the things that I really kind of heard, and it's worth mentioning because it's kind of part of what I'm listening for or kind of hearing when I'm coaching someone, is what are the things that are already working great? So I heard her say, it's a lot better than it used to be. And I'm like, oh, I want to hear more about that. Well, what I heard you say was that you just had the most connected conversation you've ever had with your mom. And then you kind of blew past it. And I'm like, well, hang on a second. That's great. That's a sign of massive evolution, either for you or for her or for both of you. And to me, that's reason to be hopeful. Like, that's the place to put your attention, not all the other stuff, because there's always going to be plenty of the other stuff to dive into if you want to. But you're not going to find anything good there. Like, I know, because we've all spent way too long diving into that stuff. There's really a kind of a simple choice in a way. It's like, where do you want to put your attention? Like, as you sit here right now with me, what do you want to vote for? Do you want to vote for more love, more connection, more peace? Or more, yeah, like me too. That's what I vote for. Except when I don't, you know? But did you ever hear that saying, the devil always has the best tunes?
Not really.
Well, it's an old saying that kind of, or the devil is in the detail is another one. Very compelling to dive into the detail because there's such a good story that goes along with it. It really hangs together. The logic is really solid and it feels compelling and all. But there's nothing good there. Nothing worth, investing your precious consciousness in.
So how do I get more? I don't know. I just want to have more connected conversations with her. And when I spoke to her last week, I felt like there was, she was off somewhere else again. I guess there's nothing much I can do about how much is going on inside her head.
Well, I think the best thing you can do about it is show up with as much. It's like that old biblical saying. I'm not a good Bible scholar, but you ever heard the thing? Don't worry about the splinter in your neighbor's eye. Worry about the log in yours.
No, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, apparently it's a biblical saying. It's like, hey, dude, you've got a splinter in your eye, and it's like, meanwhile, you're like walking around with this thing, and it's like we're all that guy with a log in his own eye. It's sort of what Gavin was talking about. It's so easy to point the finger at someone else's misunderstanding, but actually, whenever it looks like that's what's going on, we have the opportunity to see where our own experience is coming from. That's where the action is. Like, if you want to have more connected conversations with your mom, I would have thought the answer is to bring more peace and clarity and love and understanding to those conversations. Like, that's not just true for you. That's true for me. That's true for anyone. That's true for Gavin. That's true for anyone. That's the only answer. There isn't an alternative option, as far as I know, aside from force them to go on training courses, but I can't imagine that would work very well. So I'm going to pause it there because I want to get round everyone before we wrap up, but I'll come back to the end and come back to you at the very end and check in, okay?
Okay.
Great, thank you. So Christine had to go. Sally, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
How's it all looking to you at this end of the class? Sally?
I think a lot clearer actually. It just felt at the end of the conversation like, oh yeah, just get on with it type of thing. But with nothing attached to it, just
yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, yeah. Good, thanks. So I don't know what else to say.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Gavin, me old mucker. How's it looking to you a few minutes down the line?
It's looking very beautiful. It's looking very beautiful. I did have a question for you about the last call, though, because I just found it really lovely how you, I don't know the name of the person you're talking to, you almost literally interrupted them at the point when they start going into the content that was disconnecting you.
Oh, yeah.
And I just, because I think that I am definitely more indulging of disconnection. I don't know. Yeah, I wondered if you'd speak a bit, because it was like literally kind of pulled your mic over, just like you kind of went, no, I don't want to hear that shit. Like I don't want to hear. I want to go back to connection. It felt like that. There was a really. I think that's it pointed me towards the idea that if there's only real going to be juice in connection and peace and understanding, then the content's going to just send me into upset, So
Well, yeah. Sure. Yeah. I mean, like,
if you had an hour, would you indulge someone a little more?
well, I don't have any rule. I don't even see it as indulgence in a way. I'm like, funnily enough, this brings us right back to the top of the call with Christine. What I'm doing my best for when I'm with a client is to listen as deeply as possible to the person and to feel for that connection with them. I mean, that sounds like I'm doing something, but it's just a kind of, I'm wanting to feel their humanity, and then I'm wanting to feel my humanity. And then I'm going to be guided by whatever's showing up for me in the moment, whatever makes sense in the moment. So I remember I was doing an intensive with someone, so 3-day intensive. It's the first day of the intensive. And this person just wouldn't shut up. They were talking the whole time. Now, normally, if you were to ask me, what would you do if someone just keeps talking? I was like, I'd interrupt them, I'd this or that. But for whatever reason, I was just like, I was listening as best as I could. And it just made sense to let them talk. So they talked like all day for the first day. And then beginning of the second day, it was like a different person walked in the room, and it went really, really well. So I don't have a rule or a rule of thumb even. I've got something way better than that. I've got principles. I have an understanding to some degree of how this thing works, which is I know where our experience comes from, and as a result, I know where my experience comes from. So for instance, let's say I had been on the call to coach someone, and they were, let's say they were diving right into content and X, Y, and Z, and they were all in their head, and I wasn't feeling connected. Well, if I started to get bothered by that, if I started to get uncomfortable feelings, or, this isn't a good use of the call, and da-da-da-da-da-da, if it seemed to me like my experience had something to do with them, that would be me not seeing it. The best thing I got going for me as a coach is seeing where my experience is coming from. And the more I'm able to see where my own experience is coming from, the more clarity I'm going to have in knowing what to do or what not to do with my client. And so you might. I remember I did a session with the London Therapist Group. I think it was last summer. And first person gets up at the front of the room, Viva, and I said, okay, what do you want to get from this? And she said something, I can't really remember what. And I said something like a few words, like a sentence. And then we just sat there in this beautiful feeling of peace and connection. I swear it was for like 10 minutes, 10 or 12 minutes, silent. And then she turns to me and goes, so it's all just a game? I said, yeah, you got it. Like tears running down her face. She'd had this profound insight. And half the people in the room were going, that was amazing. And the other half are going, what the fuck was that? It's like, and then the next person up, I never stopped talking. Like, I don't have a rule. What I have is my understanding to the best of my ability of where my experience is coming from. And with that, I'm able to do whatever makes sense to me in the moment. So with Fiona, she had provided such a clear statement and demonstration of what a good space she's in, and she was feeling really connected, and I could really feel her too. And then all of a sudden she kind of dove off the diving board into a tank full of sewage, and I'm like, we better fish her out of there. It didn't seem to me like I was indulging it or not indulging it. It's like, quick, get her out of there. She might get something on her. Because I know that to her it looked real. It looked real, even though it was being made up using the power of thought, real time. And it was playing havoc with her internal state and the connection that I could feel with her and that sort of thing. So it's like, quick, get her out of there. So, and it's interesting. It comes back to compassion. My compassion and love for Fiona is such that I don't want her to spend too long in that stuff. So I'm going to do my best to get the learning from it and to point her back in the direction of what she showed up on the call with, which is, she just had the most connected conversation with her mom she's ever had in her whole life. That's amazing. But here's the thing, with anyone, with any of us, it doesn't matter how good or wonderful something is, we have the power of thought, which can allow us to perceive that as not enough or not good enough or not as much as I'd like, or da-da-da. But that's just a way of, turning beauty into something less than beautiful. And we all do that sometimes.
Yeah, and back to what you said, which was so useful for me, which is that I can allow myself to have enough compassion for myself and indulge with the question, indulge myself in that doubt or that. So if
Gavin, indulge sounds like kind of like you're doing it on purpose, and you're not doing it on purpose. Like none of us are. I don't do it on purpose. No one hits himself in the head with a hammer on purpose. Well, maybe someone does, but it's not. You wouldn't do it on purpose. You do it because we all lose sight of the inside-out nature of life. You're not indulging yourself. You just get lost sometimes.
Yeah.
Just like everyone else.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pause it there, Gavin. I'm going to jump back to Fiona before we wrap it up for past. Fiona, back to you. How's it looking from the tail end of the call?
I suppose I guess my initial confusion was that if I don't know, I guess I felt I needed to go into some details so that you understood the context.
Well, I promise
Maybe
you.
not.
No, maybe not, because I promise you that as soon as I find out what's going on for someone, as soon as I try and change, you know me, Fiona, I try and change the subject as quickly as possible. And that's just the way I work. I know that you're the areas, like what I see with my clients is they've all got the same problem, which is basically they're preoccupied with something and they're overthinking it and all that sort of stuff. They're not going to find the answer there. That's not where it is. The answer's in the feeling of connection that you already had with your mom, and the feeling of enjoyment that you have in your life, and the feelings of love and peace and understanding. Any of that you can bring to any conversation is going to be, that's going to be the best predictor of a connected conversation. And, any outside misunderstanding we bring to a conversation is the best predictor of taking a downturn. But that's the beauty of this, to speak to Gavin's question, how can I get over it more quickly? How can I wake up to it more quickly? How can I see through it more quickly? Is to do exactly what you're doing, which is stay in the game and keep deepening your understanding. And we all have places where we get tricked. And the ego will always try and justify and always try and say, yeah, but that, I know that's not where the answer is. It's just not there.
Yeah, I suppose that confusion came around a sort of question, whereas if you don't understand the situation, how can you help me get out of it? But actually, that's what it seemed like at the time. But looking now from more of an observer position, I can see that we all know that it's only one thing that's in the way at any time.
Sure.
So you don't need to know any details, really, because that's the one thing that's in the way.
Well, sometimes I'm always going to follow my wisdom on what detail to ask for or not. Like sometimes, I was on a call with someone the other day, never met them before. He's like, oh, I've got 2 daughters. So I'm like, oh, what age are they? Because I've got 2 daughters too. So it's just made sense to ask. Not that it was material to the conversation, but it's not that you should ask for detail or you shouldn't ask for detail. That's not really what I'm paying attention to. I'm paying attention to the feeling, because the feeling tells me everything I need to know about where my client's head's at and how my client's seeing it and how I'm seeing it. So that's what I'm being guided by. And that's what, to answer Gavin's question, that's what I'm doing my decision making based on, is the feeling and, where it seems like it's coming from. So thanks for taking part. And like Emma suggested, I'm happy if you want to post questions on the Facebook group and then tag me. I'll happily come around to them. I'll send you guys out or Emma will send you out a link to the transcript I told you about. And we've got our Clarity Coach training starting in September. So Emma will probably send you an email that says something like, Jamie has a very special deal for you guys as part of the coaching exchange. If you'd like to know what it is, hit reply and say, send me the details or something like that. So you'll get that in the next day or two. Anyway, thank you. And I look forward to connecting with each and all of you again in the future. Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie. And thanks, everybody, for joining. That was a really beautiful call.
Thanks, Emma. Really, really nice to be part of it.